What is up, gods and goddesses? It is fight week, ladies and gentlemen. Man, seems like forever since I've talked about MMA, but we are here. I am so happy, so excited. We had some fights last weekend. The card was decent fights, but none of it is compared to the next 2 weeks of MMA and boxing that we have. And of course, I got to give out my predictions, as this is UFC 267, Jan Blachowicz versus Glover Teixeira. You also have Piotr, aka Peter Yan, against the Sandman, Corey Sandhagen, Aurora's finest. Then you have Marcin Tybura versus Alexander Volkov. You have Dan the Hangman Hooker against Islam Makhachev. And you have Magomed Ankalaev versus Volkan Oezdemir. And of course, one of the fights I am looking forward to most on this entire card, that is Khamzat, aka as Brendan Schaub calls him, Zat Daddy, against Li the Leech Jingliang. That is an amazing fight card. I know that'll get me up and going. It's going to make me run through a brick wall because I'm just so hyped for this fight card to go down. A lot of interesting matchups, a lot of fights that I just don't know what's going to happen, but I'm here to give you insight. If you're a betting man, I will tell you who to bet on, even though I don't know much about it. But if you want to put your money on someone, you should definitely continue to watch this episode right here, right now. So let's dive right into it. Let's do the last fight on the prelims, the main event of the prelims. Let's do Volkan Oezdemir versus Magomed Ankalaev. Now, both men very close in the rankings. Volkan Oezdemir was considered a tender. He was a former contender in the light heavyweight division back when Daniel Cormier was champion, which seemed like a long time ago. But he is somewhat on a resurgence. And Magomed Ankalaev, one of those Dagestani dudes that just doesn't back down from nothing or nobody. He's not afraid of any man. And both men, this is kind of a big fight to really boost themselves in the rankings. If someone can get a highlight reel knockout over one another, then we are going to be talking about their fight on Sunday morning. And it's just going to be one of those fights that really helps place things in the light heavyweight division. So it's an interesting fight. I feel like Volkan definitely has more experience than Magomed. Magomed is definitely a wrestler. He's going to use his striking that will lead to his wrestling. And I just don't see how Oezdemir can really get it done. His career was like this, skyrocketing. Let's not forget he knocked out Jimmy Manuwa. Then after his loss to Cormier, it was just do. So I'm going to have to give this one to Magomed Ankalaev. I think he gets a second round submission, second round arm triangle, which will lead into the main card, which is Khamzat Chimaev, Li Jingliang. I am so excited for this fight because Khamzat Chimaev was 2020's breakout star. He was 2020's fighter of the year. Fought 3 times, twice in a 10-day span. There was talks of him fighting the Diaz brothers. He wanted to fight Conor. He wanted to fight Kamaru Usman. He is still a newcomer. Only has 3 fights in the promotion. His last one came on September 19th of 2020 against Gerald Meerschaert in a 7-second knockout. Just one punch, straight looping right, bam. Gerald Meerschaert was out cold. And we were witnessing the rise of Khamzat. Now, something happened to him that was completely out of his control. He ended up getting COVID. And like many other people, it was hard for him. He couldn't shake the virus. And the big elephant in the room was he couldn't think of fighting. He thought of retiring. He thought the days were too dark. He didn't see himself getting any better. He was on top. Everyone was talking about him in the world of mixed martial arts. And basically, even though he didn't lose in the octagon yet, he was at an all-time low. He didn't think that he would ever fight again. He talked about retiring. But like a true warrior, true fighter's fighter that he is, no one's going to tell him to retire. Guys like Kobe, LeBron, you got to pull those guys off the court, and you got to do the same with Khamzat when it comes to fighting. He's fighting Li Jingliang, who has had some really big wins. He fought Neil Magny in his second to last fight, and we are accustomed seeing him knocking guys out. He is a knockout artist. I couldn't think of a harder fight for Khamzat to come back to because of his long layoff. He's been out for more than a year. If this was like Khamzat fought in March and then this fight, okay, no big deal. Khamzat might have a better chance. I still think Khamzat is going to win, but it's going to be a tough outing. I see Lee kind of taking it to Khamzat, but I also see Khamzat not backing down. Like Magomed Ankalaev, Khamzat is just a true dog. He is a warrior, hence his nickname, the Wolf. So Khamzat, even though he has had a long layoff, I definitely see him going out there and dominating and winning. I think, though, it's not going to be done in the first round. We are going to have a second round TKO victory. And Khamzat Chimaev, with this victory, if it's impressive enough, he comes in and shakes the entire welterweight division. I think he puts it on its axis. He does a great job. He boosts himself in the rankings. Even though he's not ranked yet, he will put himself in the rankings. And then we'll see him fight these guys, these killers that he's been wanting to fight. Next, we have Marcin Tybura versus Alexander Volkov, battle of the heavyweights. Volkov, he's been up and down as well. He's one of those guys where if he just wins one or two fights, he's right there for a title shot, as is Marcin Tybura. He's mostly known for fighting Derek Lewis. Alexander Volkov is formerly known as being one of the latest men to get knocked out in a fight. That was against Derek Lewis back at UFC 229, October 6th, 2018. This is just another big fight that will really kind of place things out in the heavyweight division. The winner probably won't get a title shot, but they will be in the conversation. Someone might break into the top 5. A lot of heavyweight fights have been going to decision lately. I don't know why that is, but I sense this one going to a decision as well. Volkov is one of the tallest fighters in the UFC, and I think he uses that to his advantage in this fight. He gets the unanimous decision victory over the one and only Marcin Tybura. Now, let's move on again to another fight I'm really looking forward to seeing, that being Dan the Hangman Hooker versus Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev is considered the second coming of the one and only Khabib Nurmagomedov. He fights very much like Khabib, and he, for those that don't know, he uses his wrestling just like Khabib. He's the type that'll take you down, ground and pound you, and submit you. His striking is a little bit better than Khabib, but I don't think that he's at the level of being a UFC champion just yet. He still has some guys to get through. He was supposed to fight Rafael dos Anjos, but Rafael dos Anjos had to pull out due to an injury. But the stud, Dan the Hangman Hooker, who just fought on the last pay-per-view against Hazrat Nakparast in a war. Let's not forget the obstacles, Let's not forget the obstacles that Dan Hooker had to overcome just to fight. He had a lot of visa issues getting into the country. Living in New Zealand, their COVID rules are super, super strict, so he couldn't get in the country. He had to sign a bunch of forms. He was going to have to be quarantined for another 8 weeks after this fight. He's considering moving out of New Zealand and moving to the US for travel restrictions. He basically didn't get to fight week until that Wednesday, which means he only had to have 2 days to cut weight. UFC was considering a catch weight between those two men, but no, like a true professional, he made weight and put on one of the fights of the night. He beat Nasrat in a decision, and then UFC needed a man to step in to fight Islam Makhachev, who's a man that nobody wants to fight. He decides, you know what, I'm going to do it. And I like the way Dan Hooker is carrying himself the past few weeks in the build-up to this fight. He is not afraid of Islam Makhachev. He is saying, you know what, Islam is just a man. He puts his socks on the same way as me. He puts his pants on the same way as me. He goes to bed the same way as me. He brushes his teeth the same way as me. He is just a man. And Islam Makhachev is a dude, as I mentioned, nobody wants to fight. But Dan Hooker is proving that, hey, I'll fight him. And not only will I fight him, I think I'll beat him. I'm excited. This is another fight. I have no idea what's going to happen. So I'm going to give my prediction. I think Dan Hooker wins second round KO. I think Islam takes him down in the first round, controls him, doesn't really land too much ground and pound. But in the second round, when Islam goes for that takedown, that's when Dan Hooker comes up with the knee and all the lights shut out in Abu Dhabi. And Dan Hooker emerges as one of the top contenders in the lightweight division. This would be a huge victory for him. Remember, his supposed coming out party was supposed to be against Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler knocked him out back at UFC 257 in January of this year. So if he can go out there and get a stunning upset against Islam, that would be such a huge feather in his cap, I think. If it's going to be a decision, Islam all the way. If it's going to be a finish, Dan Hooker will definitely get the job done. Second round KO. Then we move into our first title fight of the evening, one of two. And this is a fight I am not mad about. I was looking forward to Aljamain Sterling against Peter Yan because of the controversy that surrounded that fight. Let's not forget, Peter Yan was destroying Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain won one round, and that was the first round. Ever since that first round happened, Peter didn't look back. He was dropping Aljamain. He was toying with Aljamain, it seemed like. He was on his way to winning a dominant decision. That is until he landed that illegal knee. The referee, Mark Smith, told him he is down. Do not knee him. I don't know what Peter's corner was telling him to do, but we all know that Peter's corner said, you can knee him. It's okay. That led to a whole big logjam in the division, but not really. You see, Peter was on his way to winning a decision, and therefore, he's still somewhat the uncrowned champ. I don't think you can win a title that way. You just can't. I'm sorry, Aljamain. You just can't win the belt that way. He knows it. And at the end of the day, they're going to have to run that back. But you're going to have the interim belt on the line. And Peter Yan, still arguably the champ. Corey Sandhagen, on the other hand, Aurora's finest. I got to root for my Colorado dude. Grew up playing basketball, then walked into a mixed martial arts gym and never looked back since. He is on a tear. Corey Sandhagen became one of my all-time favorite fighters after a few of his dominant string of wins. He fought Aljamain Sterling. That didn't work out well for him. But then he bounced back greatly against Marlon Moraes. And he had a wheel kick knockout for the ages. Could have been knockout of the year. Of course, Joaquin Buckley took that spot. But Corey Sandhagen had an amazing knockout that really said, I'm back. It was a statement win against Marlon Moraes. Then, let's not forget that flying knee he had against Frankie Edgar 20 seconds into the fight. Boom. Right knee. Flatline Frankie Edgar. And after that win, over an Octagon legend, we really opened our eyes and we were saying, okay, Corey Sandhagen is not to be dealt with. He is a bona fide contender in the bantamweight division, which is one of the most stacked divisions in the UFC. So he had his last fight against TJ Dillashaw, which was a very close fight. If Corey didn't use those Granby rolls, if he didn't try for submissions, if he wasn't trying for the home run throughout the entire fight, Corey would have won. But instead, TJ did a lot more to win the fight. He outpointed him. He used his crazy combinations, used his kicks. Corey Sandhagen won the battle, while TJ Dillashaw won the war. And that's all that matters. If TJ didn't get hurt off of an knee bar that Corey had him in, it could be TJ fighting for the title this weekend. But if some people think that Corey won, then he's doing what he was supposed to be doing all along, which is fighting for the title. I love this fight for Corey. Stylistically, it is a perfect fight for him. Peter Yan is kind of one-dimensional, but his biggest trait, his biggest attribute is his power. He hits you once, you could be looking up at the lights. It's just that plain and simple. But I'm looking back on Peter Yan's record, and he doesn't really have the rap sheet that Corey Sandhagen does. Corey Sandhagen has wins over legends. He has a war with what some people call the greatest bantamweight of all time. Peter Yan's biggest win up until he became champ was against Uriah Faber. An aging Uriah Faber, not the California kid, the California dad, whom he knocked out. He beat Aldo, and then he had that fight with Aljamain. The experience is definitely going to go with Corey Sandhagen. I think him taking this fight on short notice, it is going to help Corey because he's been to a fifth round many times, while Peter Yan's only been to a fourth, twice in his championship fights. I think Corey definitely gets it done. I am going for the underdog. I think Peter Yan's too one-dimensional. Corey's too elusive. He's too long, too rangy. He is dangerous with every hand. He has more tools. If this fight goes to the ground, I give it to Corey. Whether he's the one initiating the grappling or if Peter initiates it, Corey is definitely the main man on the ground, on the feet. He uses wheel kicks. He uses straight jabs. He uses punches that not a lot of fighters see coming. I think Corey definitely gets it done. I'm going to go with... let's say, fourth round TKO. I see him just pepping Peter Yan up to the point where Peter Yan is exhausted. He is bewildered by everything. Corey gets it done. We settle the date, and he has his rematch against Aljamain Sterling later on down the road. Which leads to the main event of the evening. Glover Teixeira versus Jan Blachowicz. Polish power, mate. I like Jan, and I like Glover. Glover, let's not forget. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Glover was murking dudes in the WEC and these other bottom level promotions. He was annihilating dudes. He went on a 22 fight win streak. That is unheard of. We didn't know who he was until about 2012, when he made his UFC debut at UFC 146. We didn't know of him until then because he was just starching dudes. He couldn't come into the country because of visa issues. They just wouldn't let him into the country, and he didn't become an American citizen until November of last year. And he's still whooping ass. I give him all the credit in the world because he's had so many obstacles thrown at him, and he just keeps pounding. He keeps proving people wrong. He is a fighter's fighter. He trains with Chuck Liddell. John Hackleman, who was Chuck Liddell's main trainer, is one of Glover Teixeira's main trainers. And Glover has championship experience. He fought John Jones. And I was rooting for Glover when he fought John Jones. I thought he was one of the few guys that could beat John Jones at the time. John Jones, he's John Jones, made it look easy. And ever since then, Glover hasn't really caught the wind of that he had when he was murking dudes outside of the UFC. But when he was in the UFC, we got to see who he was. We essentially got to see him grow in front of our eyes. He was going like this in his career, and then finally, boom, something happened where he just went on a 4-fight win streak and was just dominating fools. He was just completely outlasting them with power, precision, timing, and simply old man strength. I mean, wow. I give it to him. I give him all the credit. Let's not forget that beatdown he put on Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith is no punk. He's one of the toughest dudes in the UFC, and Glover made it look easy. Then he beat Thiago Santos in his last fight, November 7th of 2020. He made that look easy as well. I thought that was going to be a hard fight because Thiago Santos was one of the guys that arguably beat John Jones. But no, Glover made it look easy with a submission, and he earned himself a right to be in this spot. He deserved it. He beat a who's who, beat Jan Kudadaliba, Nikita Krylov. He beat a lot of the up-and-comers to put himself in this position. Jan Blachowicz, on the other hand, he's had somewhat of an incredible journey coming in to this fight. He's had a monster performance that led him back to a title shot. Let's not forget, he was about to get cut by the UFC a few years ago until he made a resurgence, knocking out Corey Anderson, and he is returning to the site where he defeated Dominic Reyes to become the UFC light heavyweight champion of the world. Then he went on and took on the undisputed middleweight champion, everyone's favorite fighter, Israel Adesanya. That fight was definitely a fight where Jan didn't have all the pressure on him. Izzy was trying to achieve GOAT status and become a champ. He wanted to be a 2-weight world champion, and Jan had other plans. He did everything he could, and he made it look easy. He kind of laid out the blueprint on what it took to beat Israel Adesanya. I thought Jan won all 5 rounds against Adesanya. He did a great job of using his kicks, starting combination with the kick, ending combination with the kick. He took down Adesanya down the stretch of the fight, which made it seem as if Adesanya couldn't do anything. Jan finished strong, and therefore he remained the UFC light heavyweight champion. And I liked what he said after the fight. He's like, Glover deserves this. That's as real as it gets, which used to be the UFC's old mantra. That's as real as it gets, saying Glover deserves this. As far as anyone goes, you guys can win a few more fights. I like this fight for both men. I think it has a potential to be fight of the night like all the other events. But I do not know what is going to happen. Glover, albeit it was John Jones, he kind of disappeared in his fight against John Jones. We weren't accustomed to seeing the same Glover that we thought we would in that title fight. So I don't know what Glover I'm going to get on Saturday. I don't know. I think Jan is going to kind of fight Glover the way he fought Izzy. Not weight, but kind of weight. He's going to counterattack a lot of Glover's shots. Not really take it to the ground because Glover has a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I expect it to be a stand-up fight, kind of a kickboxing fight. I think Jan has more power. He'll come in the bigger man. And I just see him, kind of fading as the fight goes on. I think that this is Glover's time. If John Jones wasn't the champion back in 2014, Glover would have been champion already. But I think this is Glover's time. He's proven it for sure that anyone can have a resurgence. Anyone can hit that second win in their career. We saw it with Vitor Belfort. We saw it with Robbie Lawler. He is one of those men. Now, can he capitalize on it? Robbie Lawler did. Vitor didn't. But can Glover capitalize? I think so. I think it's going to be a close fight. It's going to be a banger. Fists are going to be flying. But I think Glover wins third round submission. I think he hurts Jan. I think he gets his back, gets the rear naked choke. Jan's a warrior. He's not going to tap. He's not going to take a knee for anybody. He's going to go to sleep. And we are going to see Glover become the new UFC light heavyweight champion of the world. Light heavyweight's getting exciting, man. It is back to what it was. I mean, the last time it was this exciting was when Forrest Griffin was a champion. And that was a long time ago. I'm excited. I'm really excited. So just going to run through my picks one more time. I have Magomed Ankalaev winning in the second round submission. I have Khamzat winning second round TKO. I got Alexander Volkov winning a decision, unanimous. I have Dan Hooker knocking out Islam Makhachev second round KO. And I have Corey Sandhagen knocking out Peter Yan in the fourth round. And then I have Glover Teixeira defeating Jan Blachowicz in the third round via submission. I only have one fight going the distance out of all the fights I predicted. Other than that, any of these fights can be a fight of the night or fight of the year candidate. This is something that fight fans dream of. And let's not forget, we have Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman next Saturday. You also have Canelo versus Caleb Plant. If you are a fight fan, like I am, you are getting Christmas early this year. It's just fighter galore. And I cannot wait till Saturday. It's one of those cards, though, where you have to watch it in the afternoon. They did that when Khabib fought Gaethje and when Khabib fought Poirier. So one of those fight cards where you can watch it while you're eating your lunch, but then you can still plan something for the rest of that Saturday night, Halloween Eve, maybe hit up a Halloween party here and there. But do not forget to catch these fights at the end of the afternoon. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a like and subscribe. Comment on who you think will win the fights. Let me know your predictions. Let me know who you think will be the two champions at the end of the night. It's your boy Hollywood AJ. Stay safe, stay healthy. Most of all, stay blessed. I'm out.